Motel back here with another video. Thank you for joining me. Allow me the opportunity to transport you back to a time where you might have actually had to have gone to the grocery store with your mom or your dad, and you didn't have some random stranger drop it off on your doorstep. Now, of course, the excitement of these trips was never about the do-goodedness of, oh, look, I'm helping out my family carry out an errand in some capacity. No, of course not. It was highly self-interested. What snacks are we going to get? What sodas are we going to get? What juices are we going to get? How many of these things are we going to get? Whether or not you were effective, you at least thought, I am influential by being here. I can kind of steer and guide my mom or dad into getting something that I want. Things that I was seeing on commercials. Different fruit snacks you want to try. Get them fruit by the foots with the N64 game codes on them. What cereal currently had the toy you wanted to get? I remember it being a very delicate dance. You couldn't be too whiny, you couldn't be too greedy, you couldn't ask for a whole bunch of stuff. You had to be direct in your approach, but also not be an undeserving jerk. Now, some days you could put all that excitement aside that happened inside the heart of the grocery store and dial it back to what is in the lobby or the breezeway of the grocery store. I'm not talking about the bundles of firewood or patio furniture given the season. I'm talking about those tantalizing toy vending machines. It's like, don't get me wrong, some days you had those missions where it was like, no, this is the soda we got to get. No, this is the cereal we got to get because of this toy or something. But then there were those other days where you knew there was nothing going on and you saw those toy vending machines out in the front and you were just like, nope, that's my focus today. Now, of course, these machines were always changing, rotating stock. You had your staples like big gumballs, chiclets, runts, Mike and Ike's, all that stuff that was so easy to look past. My attention, for the most part, would squarely be on all the toys that you could get in these machines. Usually, depending on what store you'd go to, you'd have your different tiers. You'd have like two rows of these machines where the bottom row would all be like 25 cents. You get like a gumball or a little handful of candy. And then if you pay 50 cents on the top row, it would be like a larger toy prize. I say larger, not really large, but like I guess like a bigger capsule. I think the quarter machine capsule sizes were like the size of like a thumb or a big toe, and then the 50-cent prizes were around the golf ball size. A few standouts of what I remember, I always loved the miniature collectible NFL helmets. Remember always getting those, hoping for your team or a team in your division. And then I'd always get like the Kansas City Chiefs, and I remember back in the day, it was just like, who even is that? Now it's like all you hear about is like Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Times have changed. Another favorite theme of mine was always just the selection of goops you could get, like glow in the dark variety, like green, yellow, pink, just capsules full of goo. Love that. And it was a nice backup or a stand-in for my Ghostbusters figures for the ectoplasm that I didn't have. But my favorite of all the selections was always just the mystery random grab bag machine. You just didn't know what you were going to get. Love those. What a thrill. So yeah, if any of that stuff ever caught my eye, it'd always just be like, all right, Mom, like whatever you want to get in the store, that's fine. But can I please, can I have 50 cents so I can get a shot at one of these? And that's just how it went. You had to pick your battles. The ones where you just didn't know what you were going to get. I mean, you didn't know what you were going to get for all of them, but the very idea of just like having no idea of what you're going to get, it could be something incredible, or oftentimes it was something that you had no business having, especially as a young man. A lot of it was like jewelry and necklaces and just junk that, I mean, you don't need any of this, but stuff that as a little guy, as a young man, I didn't need. Now, obviously, I'm a big Power Rangers fan. I always had Power Rangers toys. It was my favorite thing to collect, still is, but back then, when you'd see these machines with random stuff in it, I can't ever remember a time where there was like a dedicated, like you're guaranteed to get a Power Ranger figure if you spend 50 cents. I can't remember if that was ever the case. Somebody could correct me if that ever was an option. But I had never seen like a full machine just filled up with Power Rangers items. And when I say items, I remember there were ones that had like Power Rangers tattoos or Power Rangers stickers, like those holographic stickers. I remember all that very clearly. Didn't really interest me. I didn't like that stuff. Tattoos and stickers, all that stuff always stressed me out. I was always just like, oh my gosh, this is one use. It's just like I better use this correctly, you know? A lot of pressure for like a 5, 6 year old kid. But the Power Ranger item that I have to imagine everybody that was a Power Rangers fan wanted when you saw these were the little pencil topper figures that you saw in these machines. I mean, come on. They doubled as little tiny collectible figurines and also a gentlemanly, well, not gentlemanly, like a studently, what is it, a studently accessory? I don't know. A gentlemanly accessory to your number 2 pencil. Now, did they serve a purpose when you were writing or drawing? Absolutely not. They were not erasers, so if you put them on top of your eraser, you had to remove it to use the eraser. I guess if you use the eraser a lot, it would hide the fact that you make so many mistakes because it just covers up the eraser. That might be their functionality. I'd always have eyes like a hawk with these machines because they'd always have that nice little display card that's right up front saying like, hey, you don't want to look in the machine like this. Here's a brief synopsis of what's possibly in this machine. Here's a small sampling of what you could potentially get if you spend 50 cents. And mixed in there was always just this little tiny ranger just plopped in there, just ever so slightly, just in the backdrop of all this other nonsense, plastic bugs and rings and heart pendants, junk that nobody else wanted, but you'd see the little ranger figure there and you'd be like, ho, 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 there's a chance. There's a chance. It's in there. And of course, you say all the right stuff to your mom and she gives in. And then you plop your quarters in, turn the crank, open it up, just immediately disappointed, staring at you right back in your face. One of those little like pipe cleaner worm dolls. I'm sure they don't even make them anymore, but all you real ones know what I'm talking about. Sometimes, depending on where the machine was in the lineup, if it was like all the way at the end, you'd be able to look at it from the front and from the side so you could get a better idea of what's in there. And sometimes I remember being able to like identify like, oh, there's the ranger right up there. Oh, there's the ranger. And I remember early on, I'd be telling my dad like, ooh, look, I hope I get that one right there. And then my dad would always ground me. He'd be like, adjust your expectations there because that is all the way at the top. He'd be like, what you need to do is go get yourself a job, then bring your own money here and spend the afternoon emptying out this machine until you get that little tiny piece of junk that you want. Love my father, always has the best advice. But yes, it was always about the excitement of just seeing that little ranger, just that little shred of hope of just like, there he is, it's possible. We could get him, we could pull him. And then it would typically not happen. Now, to be perfectly, completely 100% honest with you, I did eventually at one point get the Blue Ranger out of one of those machines, and it was so satisfying. Like, I couldn't even believe it. Disappointment would occur so often that I was just so ready to be disappointed by the time I actually got one of those things. And I got it, and I couldn't have been more excited about it. I brought that thing everywhere. It was like in my pocket. A lot of the times I'd be like bringing it to like the public pool and just like throwing it. Love that thing. And of course, as time went on, you get older, eBay became a thing, and now it's like, super easy to just go get yourself a set of these somewhere. But back then, it was like unheard of. It was just like, oh, this is like my opportunity. Like, where else am I going to get this thing? I can't just go to KB Toys and buy it. Like, I have to get lucky. But yes, that's why I have a collection of these things, because it was a big part of my life growing up, just seeing those little rangers just tucked in there in that machine, just as a possibility. Always so exciting. I had to get a full set of those. And then as a bonus, I'm not really on the lookout for it. If one ever crosses my path for the right price, maybe I'll jump on it. But I'd love to get one of those display backer cards that I was talking about, where it has all the different things on it. And I just want one that has a Power Ranger in it. That'd be so tight. But in the meantime, a couple of years ago, I did pick up one of my own just because it was a really good deal, I couldn't really pass on it. So here you go. Check it out. Look at that. Lost Galaxy Pencil Huggers. So these were kind of like the elevated forms of these pencil toppers that I was after. Something about like pencil figurines. I'm not sure what the whole hype was about that with marketing. It was always just like, well, all kids have to handle pencils all the time. Like they all have pencils, boy or a girl. It's like they all have pencils. So what can we do? Yeah, they certainly shoved these down our throat. That's for sure. Stuff you could do with your pencil. In this case, it's clear the demographic that they were after were younger preppy kids that spent most of their days on the golf course at the country club, because clearly these are golf course pencils. Not sure how that went for them. I mean, if you were a Lost Galaxy fan, you were spoiled with this offering. My whole story's been about seeing one little tiny ranger in a giant machine full of all this other junk, whereas you're like basically guaranteed a ranger. I mean, I didn't see the actual machine, but clearly by the offering, that's all you were going to get. And I guess you're supposed to want to get the Magna Defender, seeing as there's only one of him in here. I guess he was the rare one. So I'm not sure if these kind of machines are still a thing. I know I do see them occasionally. I don't know how popular they are. I know I do see more machines that are like $1 or 75 cents now, which is just crazy. Just knowing like the potential little pieces of junk that you could get out of there. Nuts. I do wonder if there is some kind of mechanism in the Walmart Plus app where you could request that the driver seek out these vending machines, and you can give them certain criteria. Like if you see small Power Rangers figures in the display card, give it a couple of tries. And if that's not an option, Walmart, then I'm like doing your job for you here. I'm full of these ideas. That's going to about do it for this video. If you enjoyed this content, please let me know. If you lived through this time where all this stuff was happening in the quarter machines, please let me know. Let me know if it was fun, if it was anxiety-inducing. I'd love to hear from you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And also, please check out the Toy Talk Guys podcast. It is a podcast I do with my boy Strick. Just search Toy Talk Guys in your podcast app of choice, or check out our link in the video description below. This is Motel, and I will see you in the next one.